This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch on this Wednesday, August 20th. I'm Gary Lane. We begin this half hour in the Middle East. Israel's plan to encircle and conquer Gaza City has been approved. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, this comes in the midst of a growing war of words over Australia's plan to recognize a Palestinian state.
Israel's defense minister approved plans for Operation Gideon's Chariots 2, the plan to conquer Gaza City. The operation will involve 5 divisions, and officials say the plan includes calling up as many as 60,000 reserves. The initial phase of the plan has already started, and within days, the IDF would be encouraging the city's residents to move south to safe zones. In the meantime, Israel is still considering the late ceasefire proposal for a phased hostage release, even though Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently has said he wants a comprehensive deal with all hostages released at once. On the international front, Israel is in a war of words with Australia's leader over his support for a Palestinian state. Earlier this week, Netanyahu sent a letter to Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. He said his stance pours, quote, fuel on this anti-Semitic fire and rewards Hamas terror, hardens Hamas's refusal to free the hostages, and emboldens those who menace Australian Jews and encourages the Jew hatred now stalking your streets. He concluded, it is not diplomacy, it is appeasement. Netanyahu also called Albanese a weak politician who betrayed Israel. Albanese brushed off the criticism.
What I say is that Israel, of course, increasingly there is global concern. And global concern because people want to see an end to the cycle of violence that we have seen for far too long. That is what Australians want to see as well.
Australia's Deputy Prime Minister said they are following the UK, France and Canada.
So we are very much within the mainstream of the international community, which has always supported a two-state solution. And in that context, what we want to see is in this moment dialogue between nations, and that's why we regard this as a very disappointing and unjustified reaction.
In response to this growing movement, veteran journalist David Badin, who has followed the Palestinian Authority for 3 decades, published a list of questions these nations should consider. Will the planned Palestinian state abolish the Palestinian Charter, which mandates the destruction of Israel? Will the planned Palestinian state revoke the law that guarantees salaries to anyone who murders a Jew, the so-called pay-to-slay policy? And will the planned Palestinian state eliminate educational materials that glorify the murder of Jews? Palestinian Media Watch is also reporting that Fatah, the political arm of the Palestinian Authority, hosted a summer camp for 200 young boys and girls with the goal to create a generation that will, quote, continue the path of the martyrs and prisoners.
Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, what other questions did David Badin raise in his article about the Palestinian Authority?
Well, Gary, these are really questions, penetrating questions that really should be asked by these nations. One of them, another one is, will the planned Palestinian state remove texts that glorify those who murder Jews? And also in the maps of the planned Palestinian state, will the state of Israel appear alongside it? Many of these maps just have Palestine. They don't have any sign of Israel. Another one, Gary, is will the planned Palestinian state cancel the slogan of the, quote, right of return through armed struggle? And then one more, Gary, is will the planned Palestinian state abide by the Constitution of the state of Palestine based on Quranic Sharia law? Now, that's a very important one, that Sharia law would be the law of the land in any future Palestinian state. And Badin is saying these are the questions that should be asked of the foreign ministers of France, the United Kingdom, Norway, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, all those countries that are calling for a Palestinian state.
That's an important point, Chris, on Sharia law there, because they don't live with Jews under Sharia law or anyone who doesn't believe in Islam. And there have been discrepancies in the number of humanitarian aid trucks coming into Gaza. What have you heard?
Well, a significant gap in the number of trucks that have actually come into the Gaza Strip and what the United Nations is saying. Since May, the UN is claiming that about 3,500 trucks have entered into Gaza. But actually, the real number, the IDF says, is more than 9,000, about 9,200 trucks to enter into the Strip, about 2.5 times more. The reason for the discrepancy is that UN chooses to count only the trucks delivered by the own UN agencies and a few other aid agencies that it works with, and they omit the aid delivered through other actors in the humanitarian system, other additional international organizations, the private sector, some of these airdrops, and also the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution hub. So there's a real big discrepancy, and the UN figures really don't show the entire picture of the aid going into Gaza.
What took place this morning at David Ben Gurion Airport?
Well, it was a pretty happy occasion, Gary. About 225 olim, that is the Hebrew word for Jewish immigrants to Israel. They came from North America. They arrived this morning at David Ben Gurion Airport. It was the first charter flight since October 7th. You had people from 9 months old to 72 years old. They came from New York, Florida, Washington, and many other states. And so this August, this month, marks more than 1,000 new immigrants. It's the highest monthly total in over 20 years. There's been about 7,000 that have come since October 7th. The Minister of Aliyah, he says this is they're coming during difficult times and also growing worldwide anti-Semitism. And, Gary, this is really the fulfillment of what the Hebrew prophets from Isaiah to Jeremiah and others said would happen. And here we're watching it unfold before our very eyes.
Yes, a lot of it driven by anti-Semitism around the world. And what discovery did Israel announce from the city of David in Jerusalem?
Well, they found a rare gold coin about 2,200 years old. There's only about 20 of these coins known to exist in the whole world. It had the portrait of a Greek queen. Her name is Berenice. They'll be displaying this next month. One official said that Jerusalem really never ceases to surprise. It's a rare coin from the city of David, the original Jerusalem, but he said it carries great significance for understanding the city. The excavations in the city of David, they cover the entire chapter of the city's history from the kingdom of Judah to the destruction of the first temple. And after 2,000 years, as we see in David Ben Gurion Airport, the Jews are coming back to the promised land.
Another amazing discovery. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief, Chris Mitchell. Thank you, Chris, for your insights. We look forward to hearing from you again in the days ahead. Well, in other news, the White House is ramping up efforts to end Europe's most devastating war. But as tensions rise, finding common ground between world leaders is proving tougher than expected. George Thomas has the latest on the high-stakes push for peace and the roadblocks standing in the way.
The White House attempts to end Europe's most destructive war is turning out to be a lot harder than expected.
The president has always said that there are areas of disagreement in this war that will have to be discussed and decided upon by these two countries. And so he wants these two countries to engage in direct diplomacy.
The push for a face-to-face meeting comes after Trump met with Putin in Alaska last week and then welcomed 7 European leaders and Ukraine's President Zelensky to the White House on Monday. They're looking at places like Geneva, Vienna, Rome, Budapest, and Doha as possible spots for the meeting. But Trump acknowledged late Tuesday that Putin might not be ready to end the fighting, telling radio host Mark Levin, quote, "It's possible he doesn't want to make a deal."
I don't think anyone in Ukraine has the illusion that a meeting with Putin could suddenly bring peace. It's not as if at a meeting with Zelensky, Putin will suddenly say, "Yes, I was mistaken. I confess. I withdraw the troops. I give back the territories."
The Kremlin is also downplaying talk of a meeting between the two leaders anytime soon. On CBN's Faith Nation, Peter Doran of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies spoke of Putin's strategy.
Vladimir Putin is trying to win more victories at the negotiating table than he's won on the battlefield, and he's injecting poisoned pills into these negotiations, and Trump is trying to cut right through that.
For Ukraine, any peace deal has to come with strong security guarantees. There's discussion of sending European troops to Ukraine to prevent Russia from taking more land.
We have European allies that are ready right now to put themselves in the fray, to send their soldiers to Ukraine. And that message is going to be communicated to Russia. If you attack Ukraine again in the future, you pick a fight with us.
As for Trump, he has ruled out sending U.S. troops, but he's open to using air power and other support to back the Europeans and the Ukrainians.
The president has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies.
In the meantime, Ukraine says last night's massive drone attack shows Putin has no plans to back down. Russia launched almost 100 drones and missiles at Ukraine's Odessa region, sparking a large fire at a fuel and energy facility.
What the Russians do and have done over and over and over is stall. And it allows their military to continue to bash, batter, bombard the Ukrainians, which they've done.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Hurricane Erin is moving closer towards the East Coast. Right now, it's a Category 2 storm with sustained winds of 100 miles per hour. Forecasters say it will not make a direct hit on the U.S., but there's a risk of dangerous rip currents and significant tidal flooding. Evacuations have been underway in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where some of the strongest storm surges are expected. Many beaches along the East Coast are closing due to the potential life-threatening rip currents, including in New York and New Jersey. Coming up, the tiny nation that's spending billions of dollars to curry favor with the U.S., including gifting our country a luxury 747 jet. It's also a hotbed of Muslim extremism. We'll bring you a closer look at Qatar when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Qatar is a tiny emirate in the Persian Gulf that spends hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying American politicians and funding global terrorist groups like Hamas. Despite those troubling ties, Qatar's money and influence reach into the top tiers of the U.S. government. Dale Hurd has that story.
You might think, based on the warm relationship between Washington and Qatar, that this wealthy Gulf nation, awash in natural gas, is an outpost of democracy. After all, the country hosts the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. It will also be the home to a new Trump International Golf Course and has given the White House a $400 million 747 jetliner. However, Qatar is basically a kingdom, and according to critics, no defender of Western values.
Qatar is the opposite of all that. Qatar is an Islamist ideological emirate that seeks in every single step of its activities to promote jihad.
Yigal Carmon leads the Middle East Media Research Institute, or MEMRI, and he says Qatar is a hub of Muslim extremism and a major source of international terrorism.
They do it in what you would call, on the one hand, soft power, using their immense wealth, but also by hard power, by supporting every jihadist movement on the face of the planet.
The laundry list is a long one. The mastermind of 9/11, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, was a Qatari government employee. Qatar has long sponsored the Muslim Brotherhood, which seeks a worldwide Islamic government. Qatar finances and hosts Hamas and has backed Palestinian terrorism. It has strong ties with Iran and the Taliban, and it broadcasts anti-Semitism and lies about Israel as well as anti-American propaganda through its global TV channel Al Jazeera. There have also been reports Qatar funds terrorists in Africa who kill Christians. On October 7th, Qatar blamed Israel for the Hamas massacre. And when Israel killed the mastermind behind the attack, Yahya Sinwar, the mother of Qatar's emir, in a now deleted post on X, wrote that Sinwar will live on and Israel will be gone.
This is the emir of Qatar and the former commander of Hamas. Look at the smiles of love in the faces. For them, the elimination of Israel is the core belief.
An Islamic nation that hates Israel and supports terrorism might not sound surprising, but Qatari influence runs deep in Washington and within the Trump administration. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff, and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin have either lobbied for Qatar, worked for firms that did, or had a business relationship with the emirate. Last month, former Education Secretary Bill Bennett also registered as a lobbyist for Qatar. His stated role will be to say that the $6 billion Qatar has given to U.S. higher education is not for the purpose of spreading Islamic radicalism. Qatar has spent almost $100 billion to curry favor with the White House, Congress, academia, think tanks, and corporations. It also bought influence in previous administrations.
There are plenty of nations trying to cozy up to Washington and using money to do it. The question is, what does Qatar want in return?
Natalie Icano, a senior research analyst at the Foundation for Defensive Democracies, says Qatar wants to be both arsonist and firefighter.
What that means is that Qatar sponsors a host of terrorist and extremist groups. Think Hamas, think the Taliban. So that's the arsonist part. The firefighter part is Qatar coming in and positioning itself as an indispensable peace broker, stability broker in all corners of the world.
Icano says what Qatar seems to want with its money is U.S. protection and a privileged position in policy decisions.
When Qatar engages in more adversarial behaviors, let's say, so sponsoring Hamas, hosting the Taliban, engaging in corruption, Western policymakers aren't necessarily going to hold Qatar accountable to that because they have this close relationship, because they're predisposed to see Qatar in a favorable light.
Qatar did sign a declaration last month condemning Hamas and calling on it to relinquish control of Gaza. Is this a sign of change? Qatar's embassy in Washington did not respond to our request for answers. Carmon, the counterterrorism advisor to two Israeli prime ministers, said America is being fooled. When asked about the 747 being given to the U.S. by Qatar, President Trump suggested he'd be stupid to turn down a free, very expensive airplane. But if nothing is free in geopolitics, the price of the plane and the billions being dumped on Washington is more Qatari influence. As the tiny emirate, which sees itself as the true seat of radical Islam, hopes to leverage its close relationship with the United States. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Derrick Hammonds is an AI expert and a pastor, and he believes artificial intelligence and the church should be working together. Ephraim Graham has more.
What's the advice to churches, ministries that are typically already behind the times when it comes to media, already behind the times when it comes to internet, already behind the times when it comes to social media? Now we have AI on top of this. I mean, many feel like I haven't even caught up on Facebook yet. Now you're telling me that. What do you do?
My advice would be start somewhere. Things like ChatGPT. You can use it for free, to just use it and start, to build, to get your appetite wet as to what it can do versus what it can't do. Secondly, I would suggest, if I don't know about AI and how to use it in my church experience, maybe consider a consultant. I think third would be a partnership with other churches that's already using said technology, because sometimes the barter system still works really well. And if we use it to our advantage, then that service that we are lacking behind, somebody else may have it and may be willing to share it with me.
Is it something we should be afraid of?
No. I think what generates fear is the fact that this is one more tool that we have to use. And that's what generates fear. So if I have to reskill, like how to learn this, everything's always changing. I'm afraid of that more so than I'm afraid of the actual technology itself.
How would you describe the landscape right now? What are we looking at?
Oh man, the landscape, for some, it's full of opportunity. For those who are a little bit fearful, it comes with this haze of fear that's almost debilitating. And so for me, I'm hopeful and creative and thinking through already what we could build together as a church.
How do we use this technology ethically. As a minister, I don't want to pass off work that I did not do, research that I did not do, theology that I did not check.
Yes.
How do we use it ethically?
Well, I think the ethical conversation can go, one or two ways. But to kind of slim it up, I think the most ethical thing you can do is make sure you put your words into AI first. It's the most ethical thing you can do. Why? Because it's not writing for you, you are writing for it. If you have your own written information, study material, and you load it up into AI, now it becomes an advocate and a resource for you in terms of use. It becomes an assistant. It becomes a tool. It doesn't replace the work that you are called to do.
How are you seeing ministers use this well?
Oh, well, I'm seeing some use it. I'm seeing some use it in an unethical way.
Okay.
They're trying to take a shortcut. I'm seeing preachers use it as assistants in church, whether answering phone calls or sending out emails. I'm seeing pastors use it to do letters of recommendation. The possibilities are endless. And if we're talking about a user experience when someone joins your church, I'm seeing pastors use AI to help with the assimilation process, to walk people from one step to the next. This can all be AI to a point, and then the human experience can jump in to help you do the rest.
How are you feeling about the future?
Man, I'm hopeful about the future. I'm hopeful about the youth in the future who will get a hold of this and take it even further than what I have. I'm curious also as to what else can we build? What can we build natively for a certain group of people or a church to make sure they can use it? And then what can we build that doesn't cost? So that's what I'm curious and hopeful about.
A spiritual awakening in the U.S. keeps growing. The latest event happening at a place that's been the heartbeat of revival for decades. At Pirates Cove in Newport Beach, California, thousands publicly declared faith in Christ. The third annual Jesus Revolution baptism saw 2,100 people baptized in the Pacific Ocean. Lori, whose personal testimony was featured in the box office hit Jesus Revolution, said some of the signs of revival go beyond the events during the Jesus movement of the 60s and 70s. Well, that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.